Alrighty, I'm back with another dose of Airdrop Alpha for you. I've got a bunch of tokens that are claimable today, as well as a bunch of things that you can do to qualify for future airdrops. So let's start off with something positive, which is the mode airdrop. Now this one is going to be claimable live tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. UTC time. So the snapshot for season 1 was May 5th. The claim is tomorrow. There's going to be 500 million mode allocated, and we currently can't see exactly what our allocations are going to be. The team in the Discord is saying that that is going to be available tomorrow at claim, but they did release some more information on this. So there's a minimum requirement for points in order to claim this airdrop, and that minimum is only 250 points. So I think that's pretty simple to acquire. Most people would have more than that. On top of that, there's going to be 30 days to claim, and then there is also that vesting period for people that ended up in the top 2,000 wallets. Now, I want to address something here. I definitely don't think the way that they structured the vesting is very equitable, because the rank 2000 wallet has something like 50,000 points and the rank number 1 wallet has something like 20 million points. Oh, sorry, no, 125 million points. And by the way, they did release a Google Sheet with the exact points tally for all of the wallets that qualified for the season 1 airdrop. So I'll drop a link to this down below. You can Control F and search for your wallet and see how many points you ended up with. But yeah, it does seem a little bit crazy to me that there's an equal vesting schedule for wallet number 1 at 125 million points and wallet number 2000 at something like 50 or 60,000 points. Anyways, if you are getting hit with a vesting schedule tomorrow for mode, the way that it works is you only get 50% of the tokens up front, and the remaining 50% you only get if you keep the same amount of assets on the chain as you had at the snapshot on May 2nd. So they said here they took some TVL snapshots and asset snapshots on April 29th and the 2nd of May, and that is what is being used apparently to measure the vesting schedule. So after 90 days, if you still have that same amount of assets on the mode L2, you'll be able to claim the rest of your allocation. If you have 50% less than what you had on these days, then you'll be able to claim half of your allocation. So that's the way they're doing it. And it's time weighted as well. And so this is confirmed by the mode team in their Discord that you wouldn't be disqualified or lose the remaining of your vesting tokens if you sell some of the mode airdrop, but it's the original assets that need to stay within the ecosystem in order to get the rest of the allocation 3 months later. Anyways, let's keep our fingers crossed that this airdrop actually ends up being a solid one, because honestly, we've had a string of disappointments over the last week or so, some of which I'm about to talk about right now. So I guess let's just pivot right now into Zero Lend, which is one of those disappointments, 100%. So this morning at 7 a.m. UTC, the Zero claim went live. Now, basically the TLDR is most people got peanuts. Even if you put tens of thousands of dollars onto the Zero Lend platform, you probably wouldn't have gotten all that much. Also, there's a vesting schedule for the Zero token where you only get 40% upfront, and then there's a 6-month vesting schedule for the remaining 60%. You don't get anything else for 3 months, and then after that, there's a 3-month linear vesting. So you unlock a little bit of your tokens every day until you reach the fully vested allocation. Anyways, yeah, this is what the price chart looks like for the Zero token post-launch. So obviously not great. Dumped pretty hard immediately, and it's been kind of trending down since then. Seems like the average allocation of the Zero token was in the tens of thousands of Zero, which ends up working out to something like $20 or $50, depending on how much you got. The only positive thing I'll say is that the Zero token claim is on the Linea network, so the transactions are super cheap, and it's already trading on something like 8 centralized exchanges, as well as a couple of DEXs. So if you want to sell your tokens, it's quite simple and easy to do that. Now, moving forward, the Zero Lend airdrop is not over, and they have this really long, drawn-out process for allocating the remaining portion of the tokens that they still have. But if you're wondering what I'm personally doing, I will be fading future Zero Lend campaigns. I'm not super bullish on the platform, I'm not bullish on the token price, and I dumped my allocation pretty much as soon as I got it. And this is really making me wonder whether or not these borrow and lending platforms, these DeFi apps, can actually drop tokens that are valuable, that people want to purchase, and that have a value proposition. Because we've seen a string of these that have kind of flopped post-launch, this being the latest one, but the other example is Kim Exchange. And so another token that is claimable today is the Kim token. This allocation is actually coming split into 2 tokens. There's the Kim and there's the X Kim, which is basically a vested version of the token that you can actually use to get higher yields if you LP on the platform. But the TLDR of this airdrop is that it's even worse. In fact, this is one of the worst airdrops I have personally ever seen. It's honestly worse than some of the Cosmos meme coin airdrops that I've received, which have been pretty spectacularly terrible. So with Kim Exchange, I got 88 Kim tokens and 38 XKim. And basically the value of these 88 Kim tokens is like $1.50 or something like that, which is almost completely pointless. If it was on any other network other than Mode where the transactions are super cheap, it would almost be not even worth claiming. And the thing about Kim Exchange is that it's actually a relatively well-used DEX. It has pretty high liquidity for certain pairs. And within the Mode ecosystem, it's definitely one of the most used dApps. And so for this airdrop to come through and be worth basically dust, again, it's just making me think about the ranking or the tier structure I would place on farming dApp airdrops. And so moving forward, when we see things like Zero Land and Kim Exchange coming out like this, dropping with the valuations of something like a Cosmos meme coin, even though this application has value proposition, is actually useful and a lot of people use it on a daily basis. Obviously, if no one's willing to buy the token, then it's not all that valuable. And I think that's an important point to just highlight, which is that when there's an airdrop and there's new supply of tokens coming on the market, if there isn't a net new buyer, the marginal person that actually wants to purchase these tokens, there's not going to be positive price action. And so maybe we're reaching kind of a saturation point for certain types of airdrops where we can kind of expect the same trend every single time, where the token just dumps immediately after launch and it's not actually worth all that much. And like I said, if there's no net new buyer of the specific token, then there's not that much hope for the airdrop to actually do well. That said, I do still think there are solid opportunities for airdrop farming. The meta isn't completely dead, and as more and more people get discouraged with a few airdrops like this, they're probably going to leave the space and the dilution is actually going to go down, going to make it better for the people that stick around. And then of course it also makes sense to focus in on airdrops where there actually is value to be had. So L1s, L2s with high TVL and high funding, definitely solid plays. All of the restaking and staking plays, and then a few outlier applications could also actually be solid plays. And you can't predict with 100% certainty which airdrops are going to be cooks and which are going to be flops. But when you add up the different metrics like the amount of funding they have, the TVL on the platform, the amount of users, and also especially if people will continue to use the application post airdrop, then you can hone in on which opportunities actually still make sense to farm. And even better if you can get an idea of how many wallets or people are farming that airdrop, and then you can match that up with the other criteria as well. And it just so happens that I have something coming out very soon that is going to help sift through the noise, and I'm going to be releasing more details on that soon, probably later this week. Anyways, let's move to yet another airdrop claim that is currently live, and this one is from Spectral Labs. They just dropped their SPEC token today, and you might qualify for this if you meet any of the criteria listed here. So a couple of NFT criteria, a couple of expensive NFT criteria, but one that you might actually qualify for, if we scroll down to the bottom here, is for Farcaster activity. So if you are a high activity user on Farcaster on the base L2, and it says right here that means you have to have 10 likes, 10 followers, 10 posts, and between 10 and 200 contract interactions on base so far this year, then you might have qualified for an allocation from this token. So you can go to their claim page, click this button up here that says claim airdrop, and check to see whether or not you're eligible. Now, while I don't know much about Spectral Labs itself and whether or not the token is going to do well, I've checked out the claim page and it is legit. Okay, next up, another token that you can claim today. So many claims live. This one is XSwap. This is going to be another small claim, but if you used the XSwap bridge, then you might actually be able to get some tokens back that could basically subsidize the cost of bridging. So not a blockbuster airdrop right here, but free money is free money. And then one final thing that you can claim right now, if you are still staking Mantle tokens, M&T tokens in the Mantle reward station, you can go check to see if you got an allocation of the MYT token from the MISO raffle event. So this was the follow-on to the Athena Shards staking campaign. And if you kept your M&T staked, you might have actually won some tokens, so you should go and check and see if you can claim them. All right, so with that little rant and all of those claims out of the way, let's move now to the future. So the Mandy network announced the actual criteria for dime stakers. This airdrop is coming through in a couple of days. On May 9th, this network is actually launching their rollup, and the MAN token is going to be airdropped to Dimension stakers. And the cutoff for this was you had to stake a minimum of 15 dime on April 30th. So that was the snapshot. So this looks like it's going to be the second dime staking airdrop that actually hits our wallets after NIM last week, and hopefully these keep rolling in and building up that airdrop snowball. All right, next up, the Pontem Lunio or Pontem network has announced that they are dropping a token, and instead of just releasing the criteria and dropping the token, they're going to be collecting feedback on Twitter through a series of polls in order to determine how the allocation should go. So if you want to participate in this, you should go follow them on Twitter and then actually vote in the polls when they release them. And in case you don't know, this is an Aptos ecosystem project. They have a wallet for Aptos, but they also own Liquid Swap, which is sort of a DeFi app on Aptos, and there's also a bridge to and from Ethereum. So within the Aptos ecosystem, I would say this is probably one of the higher value airdrop targets, and if you want to have a say in how the airdrop actually goes down, then you should definitely check them out on Twitter. All right, next up, let's talk about the new project on the Particle Network Launchpad. So the last project that launched on the People's Launchpad was the Merlin Chain and Merl token, and they just actually dropped their latest project, which is another Bitcoin DeFi project. Now, in order to participate in this, there's three things that you can do. One is to actually use BitSmiley assets, and there's actually a list of what you can do down here in order to actually earn points for this. Then you can stake the ally inscriptions from the People's Launchpad, and then also you can invite or refer other people. So this is definitely a little bit more complicated than the Merlin Chain launch, and you have to basically get as many points as you can. And if you make it onto the top of the leaderboard, then you'll actually get an allocation of this, which ends up being worth significantly more than whatever the tiny amount they want you to pay for it is. So I'll drop a link to this down below if you're interested in checking it out. If you have a bunch of the ally inscriptions, or if you're already interested in the BitSmiley ecosystem, then it could be worth trying to get an allocation here. And also, just to clarify, this is completely separate from the Particle Pioneer testnet, although it's actually run by the same team. They have their testnet airdrop campaign on for the party token, they have the launchpad, and they have the inscriptions mint as well. So it's three parts of the same project. All right, next up, let's talk about the restaking ecosystem, because this is getting honestly a bit ridiculous. So just a couple of days ago, Justin Sun decided to deposit 120,000 ETH to the Swell L2. And this basically ended up being half of the total deposits to the Swell L2. So Justin Sun is now coming in and massively diluting us. And I'm assuming that the points allocation for the Swell L2 pre-launch are going to be linear. I would be shocked, honestly, if they end up being tier-based. So that means that basically we've been massively diluted. And of course, Swell is sharing this on their page, actually promoting the fact that they're almost at their pre-launch TVL target. But of course, basically more than half of that, or half of that at least, is coming from one single depositor. And while I understand that, of course, all of these restaking networks want the hundreds of millions of dollars that Justin Sun has, when they allow him to just come in and do this and take basically half of the tokens, essentially, it's not ideal for decentralization, let's say, and just completely squeezes out everybody else, especially the little guy. Anyways, in other restaking news, a positive development is that Kelp DAO has enabled withdrawals for their RS ETH. So there's very low risk now of a depeg, because people could arbitrage this via withdrawing and then swapping. So with the situation that's going on with Easy ETH right now, theoretically now that would not happen with Kelp DAO's RS ETH, and then also with EtherFi's EETH, where they've had withdrawals enabled since day one. Another piece of restaking news is that apparently Puffer's mainnet is launching on Wednesday. They have a 5x points multiplier up until the end, and then I guess the Puffer token is coming soon. All right, next, let's move to some actual actionable alpha of things that you can get in on early, on the ground floor. So today, Zi-Fi launched their new Quest dashboard, and they're dropping 10% of their total token supply to the community. So what is Zi-Fi? Basically, it's a paymaster feature that allows you to pay for gas for transactions with any token, not just ETH. It's currently enabled on ZK Sync, but I do believe that their goal is to actually expand this paymaster feature to multiple different L2s. So if you go to their Quest page, connect a wallet and sign in, you might have some points available based on your previous activity. And then they've got other things that you can do to earn points, including a couple of social activities and then actual on-chain transactions. And these are decent airdrop Legos or multi-airdrop qualifiers because you can interact with Zi-Fi on ZK Sync and then with different applications as well. So if you want to check this one out, they literally just launched today and this is actual fresh alpha. Okay, next up, apparently Ecubo is dropping their token soon. They just said that their contracts for governance or the token contracts have been audited and they dropped the last call for points. So this is a Starknet DeFi app. You can provide liquidity and you can make swaps on Ecubo. I've actually talked about them before and made a full tutorial video, and it looks like the token is coming soon. Okay, next up, if you want to get the scroll airdrop and the layer 3 airdrop, you should definitely do these quests right here on the layer 3 platform because all of these scroll quests come with cubes and there's only a couple of days left to mint cubes to level up for the layer 3 airdrop, and then you're doing all of these on-chain transactions for scroll as well. Now, the scroll network has been quite glitchy and more expensive than pretty much all of the other L2s so far. However, I feel like that's actually making it less farmed and potentially underfarmed because a lot of people are fading it. So I personally plan on completing all of these cube quests here for the scroll sprint on layer 3. And they keep releasing new ones daily, by the way, so you can come back and check for new ones. Okay, next up, DBank announced a snapshot. Now, I don't know what to make of this, whether or not they're actually going to be dropping their own token or if this is just one of these random snapshots that ends up not being worth all that much. But DBank, regardless, is actually a very solid portfolio tracking application. I use it all the time. And those are actually the more bullish types of applications and airdrops, the ones that you would use even if they didn't drop a token, which in my opinion, DBank falls in that category. So we'll see what happens with this. And then the final thing I wanted to say today is that the Uprock application is now live on iOS. So you can mine this airdrop on your iPhone. It's another free airdrop. It's a competitor to Grass. And so if you want to check this one out, I'll drop the link down below. So that's it for today's video. Lots of claims, lots of news, and some fresh airdrop alpha for you. Hopefully you found this useful. As always, thanks so much for watching and have a great day.